Great. Welcome everyone to Hashmap's first virtual meetup. Uh, during during this Corona crisis, we've been looking for ways to reach out to the community more, and this virtual meetup idea is something we've been kicking around for a while. So thanks for attending the first one. Today we want to talk about website conversion tracking with Fivetran, Snowflake, and Looker. Uh, we are a data company, and we find that across the spectrum, almost independent of your domain, that the advent of these really powerful data tools are allowing for increased insights, increased value in domains that previously didn't get to take advantage of the best data tools. A little bit about me. Let me move here. My name is Randy Pitcher. I have been with Hashmap for over 2 years now, which is kind of wild to say. But I've been in data engineering for 5 years, and I've seen kind of a large cut of the different kinds of data engineering technologies that have existed, getting started in Hadoop and on-premise tools, and now today mostly in the cloud, primarily in the big three cloud vendors, and helping even smaller to large size clients drive value. And really important for today's session for me to point out is that I have zero years in digital marketing. I've never done it ever. So everything that I'm coming to you today is from the perspective of a data engineer, but I think that kind of line between just a business user and just a data engineer, those are blurring more and more. So I hope that this will still be useful for folks that aren't necessarily data engineers. Today I want to cover a couple different things. First, I want to talk to you about Hashmap, the company I work for and has helped make all of this possible. Then I'm going to dive into digital marketing with Google Analytics. I expect a lot of people on the call probably know what this is because it is so common. So we're not going to do too deep a dive, but there's some base setting things that I think will be useful. Then we're going to talk about our data stack, which as kind of a data nerd, I'm super excited about that section. And then we're going to talk about some of the insights and data delivery that we found from Hashmap. Importantly, all the data we're working with today is actual real data. This is not fake stuff from Hashmap's own website. And it is part of an ongoing effort for us to improve our own digital marketing efforts at a company largely built of data engineers. So let's start. I'll do a quick check here. If there are any comments, I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Hopefully so. Okay, I don't see any complaints. Okay, perfect. So let me dive back in. So Hashmap. Hashmap is a consulting company, about 150 people working in the data space. When people ask me what is Hashmap, what do we do, I like to answer with three kind of major pieces. First, we're data engineers. That is in our DNA. I think that'll always be true of Hashmap, even in 20 years, that we are a company built of data engineers by data engineers. We got our start mostly in that Hadoop space, similar to my own career path, mostly on-prem work with very large clients. But in the last 2 years, we've increasingly been taking on cloud-only projects or hybrid cloud projects across many different industries, not just oil, which has been previously our main vertical, but in healthcare, banking, finance, retail, manufacturing, really you name it, because these problems, they're not specific to one industry. Data is a core component of many different industries. So data engineering is at our core what we do. But because we've made this push into the cloud and we help all different size companies make their first step in the cloud or increase their current cloud architecture, we've developed a core competency as cloud architects to ensure that everyone across the spectrum of skill sets can really leverage what's available now in the cloud and use best of breed approaches that are fit for their specific tech profile. And then that kind of combined makes us trusted advisors. Hashmap is vendor neutral, which is always important to say. Not everyone can say that. I have never been in a position where I've had to recommend a solution that wasn't correct because that's our solution. Never. So that gives me the flexibility to be an honest, engaged partner. And that's something important with Hashmap. We develop long-term trusted relationships with clients that are value-driven. We don't do quick hits and then bye, see you later forever. We don't come in for like a big bang and just squeeze everything we can. We need to have a mutual value proposition that helps us win with our clients. So those are the big three things. But what this description doesn't capture is something that I think is really important to say about Hashmap. And that is that we are really, really fun. We're really fun to work with. And we make data engineering exciting, which might sound impossible to some of you on the phone here. Data engineering is a space filled with buzzwords and fluff and esoteric technologies. And it affects most of us, almost regardless of the kind of work we do. So if you have someone that can make it fun and exciting and value-driven, really simplify things and let you focus on what you care about, right? I think that's a game changer. And that's what Hashmap strives to do. The way I think about it is that most people, when they're working with data, they really want to do the exciting stuff. They don't want to do the plumbing. So Hashmap, we take on the plumbing. We're great at the plumbing, and we let you focus on building intuitive, insightful dashboards and BI, and we let you focus on doing machine learning, and we let you focus on your actual business problems, because most people, that's what they want to do. And we can make your data engineering, your pipelines work for you. So that's kind of who we are, kind of where I'm coming from today. But let's talk about first digital marketing in general with Google Analytics. Google Analytics is a new tool for us. At its core, it is Google's service for displaying return on investment information about the advertising you might spend with Google. So if I have a website, for example, I can go to Google Analytics and get a very small snippet of code to put into the pages of my website. And for Hashmap, we don't actually host our own server. We use Wix, and there's a nice little section in that, but it's similar in a lot of the services you would use. You just put your Google Analytics information, and all of a sudden you have this flood of data coming in that answers important questions about your website that we normally wouldn't be able to track. For example, you might want to know how many users are coming to the site. That's probably one of the most basic metrics you'd want to know. Where did they hear about us? Why are they coming to the site? What drew them to click on this link? And then when it comes to advertising, which we're getting into today, that's kind of new for us, actual paid advertising. How do we know if we're paying too much or too little? Should we be spending more or less? Who should we be targeting our advertising to get the most bang for our buck? And at the end of the day, what I really care about is whether we're turning our website traffic into sales. Are we generating revenue from the presence of our website? I think really whoever you are, whatever reason you have for having a website at your organization, you're looking at a similar combination of questions, maybe more sophisticated than this to actually drive additional sales. But I think at the end of the day, you have some value that you're trying to extract. And when you use Google Analytics, that kind of comes out of the box. And then it's really easy to integrate with their advertising service. But just to lay the groundwork for how some of this works, Google, of course, they have a ton of information about individual users. They track you across the web. That can be kind of scary, but it can be also really useful in digital marketing. But that's only part of it, right? They'll tell you who is coming to the site. But the portion that tells you where they came from, that depends on where they came from. So let's look at a URL. Let's just do a really quick dive into how the website is constructed. I think many of you are familiar with this, hashmapinc.com. If you type this in your browser, it'll take you to our website. And I will see that someone came to our website. But what I won't see is that you came to the website because I recommended you type it in. Because there's no information in this URL telling Google Analytics where this person came from. And maybe you click on another link. You go to Data Rebels on Tap. This is our new podcast at Hashmap. It's really kind of a fun thing to do where we interview different data professionals and talk about data technology while having a drink. And that's a lot of fun. But if someone went to this page, I wouldn't necessarily know what drove them there. Is this the result of a social media post? Is this the result of an email that we sent out? I really don't want to lose that information, because if I see a spike on attendance to that site, how do I capitalize on that? And how do I recreate that success? So another part of the URL that maybe not a lot of people are familiar with, though I'm sure we've all seen, is this kind of junk at the end. These UTM codes. And these are like tracking values that are really industry standard. They come from a company that Google bought and kind of converted into Google Analytics. And they're kind of hard to read in this format. So let's clean these up just a little bit. This is how they work. They're really, really simple. So you have a question mark at the end of any URL that you're going to, and you just start doing key value pairs. So in this one, I have my campaign is equal to virtual meetups. So that's where we're at right now. My medium is email. So this might be something that I send out through a bulk email. The source is directly from Hashmap, but if I have a vendor partner, I might have this be Snowflake or Looker or Fivetran, right, that are sending out their emails. And then content is identifying in the specific email, what did you click on? So you've seen emails where I have two different links in the same email. One is like a big red button, and then the other one is like an embedded link. So if I wanted to track, are more people clicking the red button or are they clicking the link, I can add this content here and the rest will be the same. So by adding these, and there's no special magic to this, by the way, I just type these out. I have a little plugin on Chrome that helps me do it. But you can put anything you want in here and Google Analytics will pick these up and automatically sort your data based on this information. And this is the foundation of our digital marketing. There's more advanced, more sophisticated ways to do this. But I think once you have this understanding of what these metrics mean, you're going to start seeing them everywhere. I promise you, in your email inbox right now, a company has sent you a link to click on that has these in there. You'll see them all over. So once we start using that, say I send this out in a big blast, how do I interpret the data? So Google Analytics has a UI component. They have some really good pre-built stuff on the left that they expose to you. But if you want to understand the data yourself in maybe a different way, you have to generate your own custom report. And this is kind of small, but it's showing you what I would consider a kind of a dated experience for generating a report. I am defining users and new users, like the count of those, as the metric I care most about. And the way I want to split those are by my source and medium. So I want to know how they got here and what content they clicked on to get there. So this is a really basic dashboard, and it'll show me a nice line chart. It only goes down to the day resolution, though Google does store information much more low granularity than that. And there's only a number of charts I can do. Unfortunately, it's rather limited. And if I try to change something, I'll see kind of a lot of loading screens in my experience, because I like to slice and dice quite a bit. And it's understandable. Google Analytics is built to monitor all of the web's traffic, and they have to display that to any individual user on the drop of a hat. So they do good for what they're doing, but that doesn't help me get analytics fast. It doesn't help me answer questions that I don't know to ask yet, especially being new to this space. And I can't sync this with other data sources. I can't put my HubSpot data in here and correlate this to really detailed campaign information or deals, track conversions beyond the contact us all the way through to selling. And I can't control access across some potentially sensitive information the way I would in like a Snowflake tool. So it's a limited approach. But the foundation of what we're here to talk about is how data engineering can solve these digital marketing problems. The way I see it across different domains, data engineering problems are at the core of what we think are non-data engineering problems. So digital marketing today I'm going to propose is actually a data engineering problem. And that's great news because I can solve data engineering problems, even though I might not be a great digital marketer. Let's talk about our data stack. Before we get going, I wanted to use some poll features in Zoom. So this is my first Zoom webinar. Feel free not to answer if you don't want to, but let me see about kicking off some of these. First, I want to know how many people are Snowflake users today? And we'll give you a couple seconds to answer these. Okay, so it's a pretty good split. So we've got about half people are, half people aren't. And again, about 25% of people who are not Snowflake users, they're interested. So, oh, I don't have to tell you, I can just show you. So those are the results. So that's kind of a good mix. It's partly what I expected. So let's dive into that. I think a non-controversial statement is that regardless of the tools you're using, you'll have an approach similar to this. We know we have Google Analytics data that we need to get into our system. And in this case, it's Snowflake. That's not even a question mark for me. That's the tool I'm going to use. And then once it's raw in the system, I'll need to be able to transform it, maybe hide some sensitive data, maybe clean up some URL paths to make it easy for BI consumption, and then save that into analytics. And then I'm going to need to consume that. And depending on who I am or who my target audience is, different tools will be appropriate. Some data scientists are going to want Python. Some really low tech levels are going to want like raw Excel. And then other people are going to want like a BI tool. And then important as well, it's not just Google Analytics data. So we don't host our website. We use Wix, right? But if we did host our website, if you have a full stack for your product or offering, then you probably have some actual databases, maybe on-premise or in the cloud, that are custom that store this data. So ideally, whatever tool I choose can handle both of these scenarios and whatever I throw at it to get my raw data just handled. I don't want to think about it anymore. Just put it on autopilot. And so Snowflake is going to allow me to do that with Fivetran. So I have my Fivetran database here, my dev, test, and prod workspace for Snowflake, and I'll be able to transform everything in here and then consume directly. Snowflake has instant compute that allows me to scale up to really high demand in case our traffic went through the roof. But it's also really cheap to get started, and there's no upfront costs. So I can't recommend this enough. That's kind of why I'm using it. And next, I want to use Fivetran. So we'll change this to Fivetran DB. Fivetran is a managed ETL service that will, in a simple point and click manner, no coding, replicate all of my data directly into Snowflake. And once it's there, I can do all the cleaning and the security monitoring that I need to do directly in one environment. I'm no longer having to jump between my different ETL tools, my custom code, my different monitoring solutions. I can just stay in normal SQL land where I'm very efficient. For this Google Analytics connection, Fivetran has a pre-built connector that I just click on the Google Analytics. I tell it what name I want the table to be, click on authorization. It's very simple, no passwords or anything. I tell it how far back to go. And in this case, we went back a year, even though we've only been collecting for a little over 2 months now. And I tell it what dimensions to grab. So these dimensions are things like the city that the traffic came from, the country that it's coming from, the source and medium that drove the traffic to the site. And these are things I slice and dice by. I want to group by or limit. And then I have the metrics, and these are the things I actually want to monitor. So that would be new users or page views, maybe my goal completions. And these are really important in Google Analytics. It'll monitor normal traffic, but if you want to really get the most out of it, you should define goals. And in my case, my goal 1 is people view our reach out page. That's our contact us page. So ideally, if I have 100 people come to the website, some percentage of those folks will click on reach out and submit a form to ask Hashmap to talk a problem out with them. Maybe that's a lead. Maybe we can find an agreement and work on a project together. So goal 1 is just viewing that page. That's kind of our first step. You got to view it to submit. And then goal 2 here is clicking submit on that button. This is all really easy to configure in Google Analytics, but once it's there, I can pull it really seamlessly with Fivetran. Fivetran doesn't stop there though. So I actually had the CSV from registrations today through Zoom. I think all of you had to register to attend. If I wanted to break that data down and get some more insights out of it, then I would need to put that in my tool as well for visualization. Fivetran has the easiest CSV uploader I've ever seen, and it handles complex situations well. So it might be hard to see, but up top here, my CSV from Zoom is not cleanly formatted. The first 5 lines are kind of, they're disjoint, like summary information. And normally I would have to clean that up manually. But Fivetran just let me tell it that the columns start at line 6 and ignore everything before that. This information here, these are all hash mappers and a fake account I use to test the registration. So that's no one's information. And it's actually gotten quite a lot bigger. We had over 100 registrants today, which is exciting for our first session. So now I have that information in my system as well. That's something I could not get with Google Analytics. There'd be no way to combine that. So already I'm getting value. So that's why we're using Fivetran. The next step, how do I take this raw data and convert it into something easy to consume and maybe safe to consume depending on the regulations of my industry. For that, I'm going to use DBT, and this is maybe the nerdiest part of the whole session. I am a huge DBT fan. DBT stands for Data Build Tool. It is a command line interface for deploying all of your data warehouse models. It's the simplest thing in the world to use. Once you define normal SQL select statements, and I have a ton of them, you just run DBT run in a command line, and it executes all of it. You don't tell it how. You don't have to worry about creating a table or dropping a table or modifying or setting up any sort of complex workflows. It's just run. And then I can use this simple deployment mechanism to deploy my entire warehouse in less than 30 seconds. It's all up repeatably too. So if I have to shut it all down for some reason and then bring it back up, I can do that instantly. And I've worked on a lot of projects where most of the logic for a data warehouse existed in SQL files that maybe are in version control, maybe they're not. A lot of it was manually done. They relied on a lot of these like data heroes who would come in, own the system, build stuff themselves, never really document much. And then guess what? They get promoted or they get a new job. And now you don't know how or why your database works. DBT removes that while keeping the skill set requirements very low to just a basic SQL user. And I can't recommend it enough. But this alone would be useful, but it's not all there is. Once I deploy, DBT will also generate documentation for me that shows my lineage for all of my models. So in green here, I have all my sources for my Google Analytics and my virtual Meetup models. And then I can see how they progress through stages, through a curated zone, and then through general consumption, all the way up to my unified Google Analytics traffic that I can use to see traffic by any dimension you want to cut by. And then if I click on one of these, maybe I'm a user who's not sure which table to use. This is a lot of information. I can get detailed documentation, including descriptions, column types, descriptions of those columns. If I go in there and add those, maybe there's something that's confusing. And then all the different tests I've run against this. This is just the tip of the iceberg with DBT. It's an open source tool. You do not pay for this. I encourage everyone who's doing any sort of SQL work today to take a look at this when you can. I think it's going to be huge. It's just kind of the start right now. So that's why I'm going to use DBT. It makes it really simple for me to just branch on my data warehouse repo, add a couple new features on this new data, and then instantly deploy in a way that updates itself every hour. So Fivetran's automated. My transformations are automated. Now I need to pick a BI tool. And for this, I'm going to use Looker. Looker has a couple really core advantages that make it the right solution for my use case. First, it's a no-code solution for my marketing team. I can go in, define all the complex transformations in SQL, put it in Looker ML so that I'm modeling in the ways that I know my users will need. And then my marketing team can come in and just explore. They don't have to write code. They can answer questions they don't know they have yet, and they can also answer the questions they already have. I also have really tight governance in Looker. I think Looker has one of the most comprehensive security models I've ever seen in a BI tool. So I can guarantee that none of the sensitive data that I may want to visualize, for example, in an HR context, I can guarantee that information doesn't leak out to data engineers or project managers. So this allows us to use a good visualization tool and not have to worry about the separation of concerns. It's also really flexible and fast, and I feel like this gets overlooked because of course it is once you start using it. But it's important to note, not all BI tools are going to be so flexible or so quick for massive data sets. And your Google Analytics data can get very big, very quick. Particularly the Snowflake integration with Looker is seamless. It was simple to set up. I don't have to manage passwords. It's all single sign-on, directly passed through to Snowflake, which a lot of BI tools struggle with today, especially legacy tools that are, they're not cloud first. So that's important. And then there's the consumption side. Looker has so many integrated apps, so many options for me to share this information to main stakeholders. Of course, the people who are living in Looker, they'll go in, they can find the dashboards themselves. But Hashmap, we're a big Slack company. We use Slack all the time. We integrate it with our clients as well. So say I want to share a visualization, but not everyone on the channel has access to Looker. Maybe they're a partner. I can use my chat bot, the Slack bot for Looker, to just upload a picture of the visualization right there in line with no effort. And that's just one of the integrations that Looker has. So if you're looking for the tool that's going to allow you the tightest governance, the right combination of code or no code, depending on the role, and then really, really easy distribution of your insights, you've got to give Looker a try. And that completes our architecture. I'm so happy with this. It's modular. I could cut out any piece of this that I want and replace it with something else if I have to. But I think I'm really in the best of breed right now. I wouldn't want to change this. But also, it's tolerant of really complex use cases. Fivetran is going to accommodate a huge number of my data sources. dbt has infinite flexibility for complex transformation. And Looker is going to handle everything I throw at it. And then, of course, Snowflake is the foundation for all of this. I can't say enough good things about Snowflake. So this is the architecture stack that we have set up. I want to iterate a little further. You do not need to be a really high skilled, really experienced data engineer to have a stack like this. The tools these days really take away a lot of the busy work and the hard components. So if you're interested in doing something like this, you absolutely can do this yourself. You can get in and get started quickly. So I want to ask a couple more polls here right now, kind of as a break. Let's see. How many people here are Fivetran users today? Okay, wow. Yeah, so this is a much more different split than the Snowflake question. Let me end this. So it looks like mostly people are a no, and with a little bit of interest there for folks that aren't using it. It's worth checking out. If you already have a tool that you're used to, or you already have infrastructure for this, I can see that you might think, no, I don't need to use this. But it's all about that flexibility to add additional stuff. So please check out Fivetran if you're serious about doing data engineering efforts. Next question. How many of you are dbt users? And I'd be really interested to see the results of this. Oh man, okay. So it looks like we've got maybe 2 users today. Okay, I'll give just a 3, 2, 1. I'll close this. Okay, so it's a really even split between people who are not using it and people who are not but interested. I hope by the end of this, that last one will drive up. dbt, again, it's an open source project. You might have to type in dbt data to Google it because dbt doesn't really pull it up. But this is a sleeper hit. You guys are going to be hearing a lot about dbt over the next year or two. All right, last question. I'm sure you can guess what it is. How many Looker users do we have in the audience today? All right, less attendance on this one. Maybe I'm overdoing it with the polls. So we got 1 user. Okay, right on. Let's move on here and get into the insights. I think this is maybe where a lot of people were hoping to get information from today. And so talk a little bit about our data delivery. So now that we have this stack, how do we make use of it? Let's get out of the slides a bit here and actually walk around in Looker. So I'll pop Looker up here. And right away when I arrive in the UI, this is our live Hashmap Looker instance. I see some information about some previous dashboards I've been working on, and let me explore certain areas. But let's start from the perspective of someone new to consuming data in Looker. Right now, as a developer, I can see these develop tabs where I can create new projects, like my Google Analytics project, and I can do administration. But one of my, marketing team members, they might not want to do that. They just want to explore data. So right away, I can pull up my Google Analytics project and go into site traffic. And I'm presented with this really kind of comfortable screen for exploring data. We have three main sections here. We have actual data, visualizations, and then filters, which would apply downward to the data and in the visualizations. And then we have our different columns that we want to aggregate by. So for example, with site traffic, maybe I want to see the site, how many new users I'm getting based on country. So if I click on country and then click on my new users count and then hit run with NoSQL, I am able to get a sorted list of my new users based on the country they came from. If I am interested in what that SQL would look like, I can click this SQL tab, and I have some pretty sophisticated SQL written here with just 2 clicks on the left side. So that's kind of the power of Looker, is that you're no longer having to understand SQL or write it yourself. You can just focus on this UI. Now we can see United States is our top, followed by India, Canada, United Kingdom. Again, live data over the last 2 months from the Hashmap Inc. website. But this doesn't really help me, right? I want to visualize this. So out of the box, Looker has this nice map visualization that I didn't have to configure at all. I can zoom in and see that, yep, United States is my bright red spot, but then I have a good audience coming out of India, new users there, 430, US is 1,500. But then all across the world, we have a pretty good spread. Russia has 6 people, that's cool. Kazakhstan, 1. North Korea, none right now, but you can't win them all. Japan 4. Yeah, so we have a global presence, but we're mostly consolidated to the US and India. But I want to view this data maybe a little differently, not on a map. Let's make a bar chart to really show the comparisons. And here you can see the United States is far and away our biggest market segment for new users. Cutting this down is also really easy in Looker. So I can limit the displayed here because there's a lot of information. Let me just grab the top 10 countries. And okay, so that's looking a lot cleaner. I might want to show my value labels because I don't want to rely on this axis. And so 1,500, 429, that's useful. Hide the axes because I'd like to get rid of axes. I think it's pretty clear that those are countries. And then get rid of grid lines, which is something I'm passionate about doing whenever possible. And now we have this really useful new user by geography visualization that I can easily save as a look, which is Looker's word for a visualization. I can save it to a dashboard where I can combine it with other looks to get a really nuanced view of what's going on. Or I can share it, which is some of my favorite features, send and share. So send, I mentioned that we're Slack users, so I can have this sent to Slack to a specific channel. I won't open this now because we have client channels that we use, like I mentioned, but I can provide some commentary, and then I can also do the format. So in many cases, I have people who insist on a CSV or an Excel sheet, depending on what they're doing. But I can also just send it as a raw HTML, so they can get this information in the way they like. And maybe I want it to be processed downstream by some more sophisticated automation. I can also send this to S3, SFTP, really just email it too if I want to email it to a main stakeholder. And then I can provide some more advanced options as well. So this makes it really easy to share the instance I have to people who aren't necessarily in Looker or comfortable maybe logging in. So this is just one component, but of course, like a baking show, I've pre-baked some good stuff to share. So let's go into home here and look at a dashboard I have made already from our traffic data. So as a reminder, all this data is coming live right now from Snowflake, and it is lightning quick. It's cutting through many different dimensions from multiple connections and showing it to us live. Normally, I would not put this much information on a single dashboard. This is a ton to cover. But I think for today's discussion, it is useful to have it in one spot. To kind of get the lay of the land here. Starting on this first one, this is our traffic over time. And if I simplify, this is our total page view, the blue line here. So over time, how has hashmapinc.com page views changed? This blue is also in these other charts because these charts also are showing you page views. So the blue is how we'll align ourselves to page view information. Next, we have new users on this line chart, and we can see a spike here. That's really interesting. I don't have any dedicated charts for that on this. I ran out of space. In reality, this is probably its own dashboard for monitoring your new users. And then the contact us page views. Again, this is our goal for today's discussion, but this could be conversions for purchases made on your website or someone who's also done a contact us page. You can really define anything you want here to track over time as important. And I have it in green, and that is our first bar chart series I want to talk about, or these green ones down here. This top interest in market segments is telling me how many people as a percentage of total page views are going to the site based on their interests. And I'm getting this from Google Analytics. So my top category for coming to our contact us page is people interested in air travel. 4.65% of the page views that air travelers have are on that contact us page. So if I'm designing some marketing or some advertising efforts, I would really want to focus on this high conversion category of air travelers. And I might not want to focus so much on people who are just business services. And I can see this sliced over time too. This is probably going to change based on different design decisions. So that's interest in market segments, but just general collection of interest across all people. It's a similar chart down here. I see that auto enthusiasts are a high conversion category for us as well. And these categories, because they come straight from Google Analytics, it makes it really easy for me to increase my advertising spend in Google, focused on this combination of people. So I can design a cohort that is interested in air travel and they're auto enthusiasts, and I can slice and dice it down further to know maybe their age group or gender. And then I can target my advertising to those people to make sure that my advertising dollars are spent on the people most likely to actually get a conversion for me. And that's one way that you can start optimizing your digital advertising spend based on your conversion rates in a data-driven way. But moving to the left here, maybe I want to just start at a broader discussion. Put this information back up. What is driving traffic to my site? What parts of my site are the most interesting to the people who come here, and where are those people coming from? To dive into that a little more, we have a series of filters that allow someone without any SQL skills to really dive into this information. So what we have here is cut over the last 2 weeks. That's a rolling time frame, so this stays up to date. The time traffic goes back to early February so that we have a collection of these patterns. But I think a really obvious question to ask when you look at this chart is what happened on this day, on March 27th? We have a huge spike, our biggest one in our tracking history. So I can filter this to show me just March 27th data. And then click run with no coding again. And live data shows me that my top source of information or of traffic is our HubSpot emails. HS email stands for HubSpot email by far. So I'm willing to bet we sent out some kind of email blast that day. And then if I look at the content, our landing pages, which are the pages people first come to the website on, regardless of whether they click other pages, what was the first thing that brought them to the site? I can see most people are coming to our homepage, and then the rest are going to Data Rebels on tap, either directly there or to individual episodes. They might go to our podcasts, but there's something about that podcast that we released that are drawing people this day. And that combination of what they're looking at and what drove them there, I'm able to tell that we did our announcement on the 27th. But imagine I didn't happen to have such an easy answer. Maybe something else happened that caused the site to go viral, or there's a marketing effort we did that we didn't know was going to be so effective. Having the ability to dive down into this traffic information and recreate that success is critical. So what I've learned from this is that the podcasts are resonating with some subset of our audiences, and that email has been a really effective way to reach them. So if I'm designing what my next quarter marketing schedule is going to look like, I'm probably going to generate more podcast content, maybe even additional pieces of content similar to that, and announce it over email so I can get more spikes just like this. And now we're talking about optimizing the way we interact with our audience based on this traffic data, in addition to the kind of spending information that we're going to have. And if I wanted to segment this down to a specific area of interest, for example, we are doing kind of a lot of work in Dallas, starting that up as our next physical site. I can come up here and type in Dallas. And see how this affects our charts. So again, we have a large spike on the 27th, but we have some other interesting spikes back in the past in February. I could see across this whole time period for maybe the last 2 weeks here, it's still Data Rebels on tap. And I can expand this to be more than just the 27th. Let's do the past 90 days. Most people in Dallas are finding us on Google or in direct links. These direct links, I happen to have a suspicion, are a result of us just now getting into more advanced link tracking. As we use more link tracking, you'll see less direct and have that filter into other effective sources that are coming in. And then we can see what's mostly drawing them. They're mostly coming to the homepage, but the Data Rebels on tap has been an effective way to gather new traffic from Dallas. So that's interesting. And then we can also see what they're interested in once they get here. They're really interested in what partners we have and also trying to figure out who we are and what we do. I suspect that means that these are kind of net new potential contacts. And ideally, I would see a huge spike in their contact us page views if I'm really trying to capture this audience. So this is just kind of a segment of the kind of information that you can gather on a single dashboard, even though it is a little convoluted. I would split this up for a real world use case. But none of this involved me writing any code or being an expert in digital marketing, which I am not. So how do I share this information? Because it's nice to have it in here, but what if I want one of my managers to know about this and they're not going to take time to log in and set up an account? They just want to know in their either inbox or their Slack channel. Again, I can use some sharing information, and I can even set up a schedule. So I have a weekly website traffic summary set to go to a Slack channel, our digital marketing channel, every Monday. It sends an image of this visualization at 6 a.m. Central Time, because we have at least one really early riser on the team, and they're going to want that information. And I can filter down here to provide just the last 7 days. But if I wanted to go specifically to our Dallas channel, where we're trying to build up a new community of customers, then I can filter the city to Dallas. And now I have specifically a Dallas summary of our website traffic. And I could save that, and then this would all send out directly to Slack. So I'll close that, and let's jump back into these slides a bit. When it sends these reports, it sends it directly into the Slack channel as me who set it up. And maybe I can trick my boss into thinking I get up early enough to post anything at 6 a.m., which I do not. And they can observe things. And if it's of interest, for example, they see a spike on the 27th, they can click directly on the link. They can open up their dashboards and go dive deeper with the dashboard experience. So it's a combination of delivering the content quickly to where you are, but letting you drill deeper based on your own schedule in another space. One thing to know is that it's not all about the content you generate or the advertising dollars you spend. Your website also has to help you achieve the things that you want your users to do. So this is a snapshot of our Hashmap website as of a couple weeks ago. I have no obvious way here to contact us. We have an email link up here someone could click, or a phone number you could call. I think that's probably a high barrier to entry. where people who are just curious, but they're not sure, they're probably not going to send an email. We need another way that people can get a hold of us without having to know that in our More tab, we have a reach out form, but it's hidden. So to fix this, we made a change, a simple change, a really simple one, where we replaced the email with a reach out button. And now when you land on the page, the first thing that draws your eye is this bright blue reach out button in the top right. This is a pattern we see in a lot of websites. I think UX designers are probably rolling their eyes at us right now because it does seem obvious, but it's a thing that we've never had experience with, right? We're data engineers, not UX experts. And if you click on that, it'll take you to this page, which has a picture of me that I did not set up. Someone else did this. But some questions you might ask is, does that change of a blue button actually increase our conversions to people viewing this site? And if it does, we should keep it. And if it doesn't, or worse, it hurts, we should replace it. And that's how you can start doing some A/B testing on your website analytics based on the current setup of your environment. Then maybe we have a suspicion that people don't want to see my face when they come up here, that it scares them away. They close the page immediately. What if we remove it or we put a picture of all of Hashmap here? Does that change how many people, once they're on the site, actually submit a form? What about this form could be made easier? Because all we want to do is increase the number of contacts we get. Because if I get a contact of someone interested in a problem, I can get a hold of them, set a meeting, we can start collaborating. But if all they ever do is come here and close, I'll never know about them. So now we've got three major ways that you can use this data, simple Google Analytics data, to optimize your digital advertising spend, to design the content you generate to make sure it's resonant with your audiences, and make changes to your website to ensure that what you want the user to do is easy for the user to do. We're really just scratching the surface. The hope is that an expert in digital marketing or in UX design who wouldn't necessarily have data engineering skill sets just laying around, that they would be able to leverage this data to do much more sophisticated decision-making in design. And Hashmap is going to be able to take these tools that make that data engineering problem easier and align them for you so it's so simple. It's just a button click, you explore seamlessly, and you deliver on value add stuff, and you quit wrestling with copies of CSVs or Excel files or waiting for your advertising agency to give you the clean data after you've requested it 2 times already. Since we made this change, I will note that our contact us has jumped, not by a lot, only 5. And as a reasonable data engineer, it's likely that some of these are just us opening that page. Google Analytics lets you filter out the IP addresses that come internally, so you don't get that. But I don't think I've caught all of them. So, but on a more hopeful note, maybe I do have people coming in that blue button made an impact. What you don't